Welcome to Creative Courage Chats, a search for a new understanding of creativity and problem solving. I'm Alex Raffi. Okay, hi everybody. We're back to another Creative Courage Chats, and today I get to talk to an old friend of mine. We've known each other for a very long time, Butch Heiss. We used to work together in retail before we started our real lives. That was our earlier.
I was kind of double dipping at that point, so.
Yeah, right. Oh, this is true. This is true. You were also you were like a cyclist too. You were doing like a lot of biking. And
Yeah.
I remember that.
Not so much anymore.
Not so much anymore. But anyway, those are crazy. Those crazy days are worth a conversation, a whole different conversation. But anyway, yeah. But anyway, so I want to talk to but you're a teacher and you've been one for a long time, and you're heavily involved with the school system and everything. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So, hi everybody. My name's Butch Heiss. Currently, I'm the principal at Clyde Cox Elementary School up in on the edge of Northtown here in Las Vegas. Been doing this about 25 years. Seen a lot of things, done a lot of things, and here we are.
Well, I had the pleasure of doing my workshop for your kids.
You did?
Yeah. And
they loved it.
There was a lot of kids. And they were great kids. Those were some fantastic kids, and the teachers were great. You had a good team over there.
Absolutely.
And
we worked very hard at that.
Yeah, and your school was really something. It was really encouraging, and it was just everything about it seemed really cool. And I think that you're a talented teacher and a talented principal, and we need talented principals and talented teachers. We have a lot of problems we're kind of going through in the world, and I don't know how much you want to get into that, but it is a topic that is kind of important. But what are your thoughts about right now? Because there's a lot of parents that are they don't know what to do. They just don't know what to do. Like, what's the best thing to do for your kids in terms of
education? There's a lot of anxiety right now.
Oh yeah.
Just in general, with our families, with our teachers. We were kind of thrown into this whole distance education thing in the spring, and not everybody was ready for it. What does that look like? I've been a big believer in the non-traditional methods and means of delivering instruction. So I've kind of been setting our school up for this kind of a thing. Not the whole closure and all that stuff, but being able to do things unconventionally and different than we used to do. I think that the trouble with education is we're very slow to change. We know we need to. We know we need to do things differently, but at the end of the day, I think what I see a lot of times is teachers gravitate back to what's familiar and comfortable, and that was how they were taught, which is teachers standing at the front of the classroom and teach students in rows and those types of things. And I really try to empower teachers to get beyond that and go into some of the formations in classrooms and things where it really inspires kids to collaborate more and to participate in more discourse and talk about their learning. That's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, and the kids can learn from each other just as they learn from the adults. You would think 100 years ago, we never thought this would be a phone, right?
Right.
How many times did you hear a teacher say, "You're not going to have a calculator in your pocket"? Well, here we are.
Here, kids, yeah.
Yet our classrooms look by and large the same. The whiteboards at the front of the room. And even though we have like cool LCD projectors and things, it's really nothing more than an overhead projector on steroids,
right?
The way most people use it. So really trying to think of those other means of engaging kids with technology and put things in their hands that they're excited about.
Well, I've always been, I've gone to a lot of schools. I've done a lot of talks to a lot of schools and about creativity and the value of creativity, and I try to introduce people to creativity in a new way, making them see that it's not just drawing pictures. It's about really trying to think of things in different ways and trying to change the way you view things. And kids are so fantastic at doing that. But it seems like a lot of young kids, like the kids I met at your class, are about the age I was thinking about, that I worry about most, because I worry that because they're so hungry for stimulation, right? And it seems like that's sometimes a very difficult thing to do. Like I love teachers, I love schools and everything. So I'm going to say this, but it's not a critique of the school system. It's a question mainly.
Sure.
I'm concerned sometimes that in classrooms that the idea that the child's need for that stimulation is maybe not in the forefront, which I think is because they're so hungry and they're like sponges and they want to learn so badly. But if it doesn't feel like, I don't know, engaging and fun and energetic and something that they want, they should be hungry to learn. And sometimes the systemization of education is kind of stifling.
Absolutely. We talk a lot about cultural responsiveness and topics like that. And the materials we use in classes sometimes disengage kids. I was watching a show on ESPN years ago. I know we're talking about education here. I am talking about a sports channel, but they did a segment on a math teacher in the Bay Area, and it's captured my interest, obviously, as an educator. And what they found in studying his classes is that his students were outperforming all the other kids in the school, yet they were not necessarily the accelerated classes, right? So what he did was he wrote his own math text, and it was based on fantasy sports. It began with football, but he's expanded it into other sports now. And you think about it, what's fantasy sports? It's statistics, right?
Right.
In statistics, you have to know some high-level math. You have to know order of operations. You have to know averages. You have to know percentages.
Right.
These are the things that we struggle to get kids interested in, yet through fantasy sports, he was able to engage the kids and capture the kids' attention. And they interviewed a couple of the students during this segment. And the young man, when they asked him why he thought he was doing so well, his comment said something to the effect of, I'm paraphrasing here, when I open up the traditional textbook and word problem states a farmer had a bale of hay, he closes the book and shoves it away because they lived in an urban, suburban area. They have no concept of what a farm is no interest in what a farm is.
It's true.
So that text, it disengaged him. It wasn't the intent of that, but it disengaged him because it didn't mean anything to him. Yet most people I know play some form of fantasy sports. And it doesn't matter if it's urban, suburban, rural, across all ethnicities. A lot of people do this. And you have to know how to do these math operations to be able to participate in it and win. And that's really what was happening in the classes. The kids were learning this stuff and they were engaged and possibly even then were excited to go home and engage mom and dad in conversation. And that's another thing we struggle to do sometimes.
Right. You might have actually won some kids over that might not have been into sports either, that might actually think, oh, you know what, this is actually kind of interesting. And
absolutely. They said his best performing student in the class was not an athlete and is a young lady.
Oh, yeah. So, I worked on a university level textbook called Critical Thinking with Richard Epstein. He used to teach over at UNLV. And when I worked on it, it was interesting because it originally started because he's doing critical thinking arguments and he's having people analyze arguments. And these arguments were all written out. And I was a cartoonist at the time. So he asked me if I'd illustrate an idea. This is a university level, so this is older kids.
Sure.
And so I illustrated the argument as a comic strip. So all the things that were happening in the story he was telling was all a comic strip. And so instead of giving them the copy that was there, he gave them the sheet with the comic strip on it. And he had them analyze the comic strip as opposed to the actual writings that he was going to hand out. Mm-hmm. And he said that the difference in how people responded was like night and day. He said the energy in the room got heightened. Everybody was talking. People were commenting on the expressions on the faces of the characters, which is something you wouldn't say if you were reading it normally. So right. It was an example of how just slightly shifting and changing a thing, giving the same data, but shifting it a little bit, but making it slightly more interesting to look at or to deal with, can really excite a room. And so he ended up having me, that was my gig where I all the arguments of textbook he wrote, I ended up doing every argument as a comic strip. And that was my first real book gig that I got was doing that, which took 3 years. Took forever to do that, but it was really interesting. It was an interesting way of looking at something, and it made me kind of start changing the way I thought of how people perceive some of this stuff.
Absolutely.
So what do you think? Because right now, I know everybody's feeling the anxiety and everything, but at its core, I don't know. We haven't discussed, or I didn't even prep any questions, so I'm kind of shooting from the hip here. So you're the expert, but what I want to ask you is, okay, the school system can decide whatever they want to decide, and it's based on the ability, the budget, what the capacity is. But let's turn it on the kids. What are the needs of the kids right now? Are kids able to learn adequately on a Zoom thing, at least for a temporary time, or do they need interaction with people? What are the needs of the kids that need to be? What is the best scenario that we have to think about if we can come up with a strategy for?
Sure. I don't know that full-time distance education is a good long-term process. Distance education is not right for every teacher. It's not right for every student. It's not right for every school. There's a lot of factors that go into that. Do you have a space where distance learning is
possible, even, right?
Possible, right? You know, I was texting with one of my teachers today. She's setting up her house. She and her husband are both teachers, and they have a son going into first grade. So she's trying to find 3 separate areas in their house where they could all engage in distance learning. But have it be, I don't want to say private, but so it's not going to interfere with the others' classes, so to speak. And that's a challenge. We also have a lot of challenges, such as the opportunity gap, where we have a lot of families who don't have connectivity, or they don't have devices that will allow them to access the distance learning. So what do you do for those families? So it's trying to mitigate some of those things so that everybody can have an opportunity. I think that's probably the biggest thing that's weighing on people right now, as far as education goes, is how do we do this? What's that going to look like? You know, in the spring, I mentioned earlier, we were kind of in survival mode. Nobody really knew what was going on. We kind of put some plans together. But I really think the thing that's weighing on a lot of my families, more so even in education, is the social and emotional piece. I can't tell you how many emails I got, multiple emails a week. Families didn't know how to access food for their family. And if they knew where to get it, they didn't have transportation to get to it. So thankfully, we have a lot of wraparound services that help families get in touch with those types of things. So we were able to get them like food delivered to the house so they could survive. It comes down to that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if your basic needs aren't being met, you can't focus on the next set of needs. And I think there's 4 tiers to it. And the top 2 tiers are where you start getting to some of the self-actualization and some of those things that allow you to receive information and receive instruction. And they can't get there because they're worried about where their next meal's coming from, or if their house is going to get foreclosed on, and some of those types of things. So those were some of the bigger challenges.
And those are challenges that are, I think that these are challenges that were probably looming. These negative challenges were probably looming already for these families, except they've been accelerated because of the virus. They've been just accelerated. So whatever their situation is, whether good or bad, it's all accelerated. So if you were in a good spot, you weren't affected, really. You're able to go ahead and do what you can do. And then, but you know, that's kind of the thing. Seems to me though, like, whose job is this really? I mean, because this is, if you're thinking of problems that we're dealing with, there's a lot right now. There's so many. It's just we're just drowning in constant, you know, turmoil and things that are happening. It's just, you know, we can't even cover everything we're talking about now. But really,
we'll be here for hours.
But if you're going to choose something, I think that our kids is pretty high on the list of priorities we should have. And I think that right now we are unwittingly causing a hell of a lot of turmoil for them. and psychological issues and fear that they're not even talking about and dealing with. They have the advantage of having the internet. They are organizing within them. I know my teenager, and it seems like with her friends, they have very strong opinions about everything that's going on.
Right.
But that's great and that's important and everything. But I kind of feel like, okay, you have teachers have always carried an incredibly huge burden of being not the surrogate parent for a lot of these kids, putting this blood, sweat, and tears. I'm talking about the great teachers, the good teachers, even the good teachers that are out there who are putting everything they've got into this, and they've done so much for our kids. Kind of feels like it's time for the community to figure out what part they can play in this, because it seems to me that there's a lot of kids that don't have access to internet, and there's communities where that's a problem, and that's understood. It's time for people to start figuring this out on their own and start. If you can give back, you must give back. I would love to see this, right? I would love to see, and I know this is asking a lot, but somebody's got to say something, right? I'm just asking you if this would work.
Yeah.
What if people in their community, if they know there's a situation, there's clearly kids that live in this community, and you know that the kids don't have access individually in their homes, small groups of kids and families meeting in one place, one house. Maybe it's in the clubhouse of a complex or something like that, or somewhere, or a church, or somewhere that has access to the internet, and maybe a group of 10 kids sit there, and so what about zoning? Who cares about that stuff? Maybe we need to just kind of find these kids, put them together in a place, and at least start giving them the basics. You don't have to be there for the entire curriculum, but just give them something to keep the mind going. Because I feel like the kids need to be connected to their schools and their teachers, or a teacher in general, because eventually we're going to go back to normal. But if we create this massive disconnect and we change everything for them, I think
it's created.
Right.
So now it's a matter of navigating through that, right?
Yeah. I just feel like the community needs to kind of step up and help on this.
Yeah, as we were chatting about setting this up, you mentioned it, and I believe this too. It should be all hands on deck. Let's all come together and see what we can do to solve this. And I believe there are some organizations looking at doing some of the things that you're mentioning, as far as creating like a hub for students to go to. I think the challenge there then becomes getting the kids there. So I don't know what that looks like.
Don't we have like a lot of libraries that have a lot of space in them, and places where
there are some community libraries or like rec centers and things, spread everybody out on a basketball court and socially distance them and wear masks and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think
that could work. Yeah.
If we're washing our hands, we're wearing our masks, and we're socially distancing, and we're creating an environment, there's not only a teacher who is a licensed teacher on the screen, because I do believe we need to protect the teachers very, very much, because we need them desperately. So we protect the teacher. They're the ones on the screen. But then you have a parent or somebody there in the room who is an active adult who's walking around, making sure everybody's paying attention, making sure the kid that needs to go to the bathroom goes to the bathroom okay, and just watches over the room kind of. And I know this is simple stuff, and I'm not talking about rocket science here, but it shouldn't be rocket science. It's right. This isn't like these aren't like wild venomous bats that are flying around. This is a virus that, if we follow the rules, which is the mask, the washing the hands, keeping clean, staying away from each other, being conscious, cough in your elbow, regardless if you have a mask or not. Everybody follows the rules. It's the safest bet we have for these guys to sit there in a room and do this.
But I know that you mentioned the staying away from each other and some of those things. I know that was one of the anxieties a lot of educators had, is especially in an elementary school. Yeah. I had a student with me. He's moved on to middle school now. But when I arrived at my school in spring of 17, every time I saw the boy, he came up and gave me a hug. That's all he wanted, was some confirmation, and that, didn't matter what he was doing, what classroom he was in, what playground he was on. He would leave what he was doing and come give me a hug, because that's what he needed. So fast forward 3 years to 4 years almost to the COVID-19, is that the best practice now? And how do you shut that down when it's not safe for people, and do it in a way that is not damaging, say, to a psyche? So it's a challenging thing. And
I totally, that sucks.
it does, because
Yeah.
like the kids need it. That's all they want, is a little confirmation that they're alive and they're here and they want to be engaged.
But and then the other side of it is my other way of thinking is, what is a hug really? It's a connecting of two people that's unspoken, showing love for each other, right? And if we can't do that, it's not the only way to show love. It's not.
Agreed.
I mean,
it's universally recognized.
Right. The words a teacher gives, the encouragement a teacher gives can be the same as it's more valuable sometimes when a teacher says good job than even if a parent says good job, because the teacher is someone that is not, it isn't the parent. So it's like, it's supposed to come from your parents, but if you hear it from a teacher, it means a lot more to them. It means a heck of a lot more to them, the positive reinforcement.
Absolutely.
I've worked in
Good.
Go ahead. I was going to really quick say is that I know that a lot of teachers are discouraged because they've been teaching in a certain way, and those kinds of things are not available to them anymore. And I know that could be very disheartening and discouraging, but they are so smart and so innovative, and you're able to kind of bob and weave, and it's just temporary. I feel like you have to think it's just temporary. And this is our Super Bowl. This is our Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
This is when the innovation and creativity and knowledge and wisdom of teachers has to kick in and overdrive.
Man, I just got chills.
And we need to really start thinking in terms of that. We need to start expecting the greatness to come out of people right now. Not only teachers, though. I mean, from everyone, from law enforcement, from city officials, from citizens, basic citizens. I see it in the kids that are wiping down grocery carts in the grocery store. I walked up to one of them. I said, all of this hard work you're doing is going to pay off, man.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he was going to cry. He was like, because he's probably thinking, what am I doing with my life? What's going on? I'm at work with a mask. I'm wiping down a shopping cart. This is not how I saw my life.
But at the same time, if you give that same child the tools to wipe the shopping carts down, but not tell them how to do it, they're going to find a more efficient way to get it done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's going to be just as effective.
That is so important. That
it really is.
Yeah.
But I feel like in education, a lot of times we're not familiar with that, so we're afraid of it, so we don't allow it to happen. And that's, I think you mentioned that in your workshop, how as you progress through, that creativity gets shut down more and more and more and more. And we need to find ways to bring that out, because some really great things can happen. I really believe we're in the cusp of something great here. Well, everything happens for a reason. Maybe the reason this whole shutdown happened is the creativity is going to come out, and we can't see it right now. It doesn't reveal itself in obvious ways sometimes, but maybe some really good things are going to happen because of this.
Well, I thought, and I know you, I did not know you as a teacher. I known you, from years ago, but when I saw you working, I really felt like your school was a safe place, like a safe place for these kids. Like, and I could see the way they interacted with you, and the way that you talked to them, and the way that you talked to your staff, and the way that you guys interacted together, that it created this place. A school should be a place where people could be who they are, unjudged, where they can really explore and grow, and I think that you had that. It was a pretty great model. I've seen a lot of schools, and I like a lot of schools, but I don't know if it's just because of you, because I know you so well, but and I was like proud of you, because, but if I may say that, I think that that's so important, and it doesn't change. That's something, because that isn't that's not school is just a building. It's a place where that's happening.
Yep.
But the reason it feels safe is because of you and your staff, right?
They say a school takes on the persona of the leader. And
Right.
that's who I try to be. I try to be open to everybody, and I never say I don't have time for this or that. I might not always be able to do it right now, but I always try to get to it. And that culture that you felt when you were there was something I've worked very hard on for the last 3 years to get it to that point, because there's another saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
I could have the best plan, the best intentions, and all those other things, but if I haven't done enough to cultivate that warm and accepting, caring culture, that doesn't matter. Because all anybody's going to care about is whether somebody's going to pick on them on the playground, or somebody's going to get yelled at for something, or whatever. So that culture piece is really important. It's really critical to a school. Not to mention, you've been to my school, so you know where it is. It's not necessarily the easiest location for a lot of people to get to. Not everybody that works at my school lives by my school.
Yeah.
So I have to do those types of things that make people want to come to work. Otherwise, I'm replacing teachers and support staff every year. And then we never quite get to take that second step, because we always have to backtrack and reteach everything we had already taught. Well, now we're right there. I only have 5 new people this year. So that culture has really taken hold. And now it's what we do is just part of what we do. And it's not something we're trying to create, or a brand we're trying to establish. It's established. The challenge now is, like with the distance education piece of things, what does that look like, taking what we've done and do it in a distance education model? So we're trying to navigate through that. And I'm fortunate I have a lot of really smart, really dedicated people working on those things, because something like that for one person to do, that would be, I don't want to say insurmountable, but there'd be some sleepless nights and late burning the candle at both ends kind of things. And I'm very fortunate in that respect.
Yeah. It's just important. I feel like I need to repeat this, and I hope teachers are watching this. I'm going to really I want teachers to watch this and listen to this thing, because I think it's important right now just to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I want to just say that, like, again, I think that people don't think in terms of this. They always think objects are a thing. Like a truth is not a place you go, right?
Right.
Like a school is only great because of the people that are in it. It has nothing to do with the place. It's not. We're worried about the school system and say, I go to school and I learn, I love that school. No, you don't love that school. You love the people that run the school. You value the people that run the school. And these same people now are scattered around, and they're trying to figure this out. And there has to be this unity, and they need to feel the support. And it's really important that we start kind of huddling around each other, and we start figuring this out and working together. And that's something that is so, without people, you're nothing, right?
Right.
Without each other, we're nothing. There's nothing there. And this is so, if we've ever thought that we were good at anything, this is the time to prove it. This is
Right.
the time that we need to come together and prove it. It's really important for, nobody knows kids better than teachers. Parents know their kids, but teachers have to deal with a lot of personalities, a lot of problems, and a lot of different kinds of situations, a lot of different kinds of parents. It's like I don't even know why you guys do this. Like, it's such a hard job.
It's a very rewarding job.
It's a very rewarding job, and I love it too. And I'm one day thinking that I'll probably get into education in some way, shape, or form, for sure. As an
you are, whether you know it or not. Those workshops and things, those are fantastic.
Well, yeah. So as an advocate and for doing it, I want to definitely get into it. But I do think that I just want teachers to know that they are loved and respected and valued by a lot of us. But the us has to prove it, and the us has to show it, and the us has to support them and figure out what it is that we can do, because our kids have to get back to learning again. And I know we have to do it safely. I don't agree that you just open up schools. You don't just do it. There has to be rules and there has to be a plan. But I mean, come on, we put people on the moon, man.
Right.
Figure this out.
And you've seen it too, I'm sure. There's so many opposite viewpoints.
Right.
Do we open up schools? Do we distance ed? What is it? I wouldn't want to be the person that makes the call. That's a lose-lose decision, right? Because the people that believe in full-time distance ed, which if you say we're going back to face-to-face education, they're mad. Then you get the people that believe in face-to-face education, you say we're going full-time distance, they're mad. So the challenge then becomes how to navigate through the middle there.
Right.
And
it's different. I imagine every school system is going to be different, right? I mean, it depends. I mean, some have different needs than others. I mean,
without a doubt. And I'm not a scientist or a medical expert in any way, shape, or form, but looking at statistics, we probably have areas in our state that could probably open up safely based on what I've seen on statistics versus what we have going on in Clark. There's a lot of challenges that we have to overcome right now before we were to open up,
Yeah, I mean, this could easily devolve into a whole other conversation. But I mean, really the system is reacting to what it's been presented, the options that's been presented, and those options that were presented could have been better. The scenario could not be so dire right now if we, you know what I'm saying. Yeah. So I think that we're dealing with the best. You go to war with the soldiers you have, and the best you can with what you got. You got to deal with it how you're going to deal with it. But I do believe, I totally believe this. We haven't thought hard enough on this. There is not just two options. There never is. There never is just this idea or this idea. I think that we haven't worked hard enough on figuring out what the solution is. And it is going to take a little bit of experiment. And if we realize that it's not just making a decision now, it's taking the first step. And then that first step isn't a choice. It's just to see what's going and if it's going to lead us in the right direction. Mm-hmm. It's about trying to understand that we don't know what the end's going to look like until we actually do the work. And we're smart. We're innovators. Humans are innovative. Give teachers a chance to figure this out too. I mean, they teach the way they teach, and they have to solve problems constantly.
Oh, absolutely. I have my ideas right now, but I'll tell you, I have 3 meetings with teachers on their summer break scheduled tomorrow and Friday to discuss the schedule and what our day is going to look like. Yeah. Because I want teacher input, because what works in my head might not be practical. So I want feedback and input from the people that are going to be doing the work. My hard work is right now planning all this stuff out. Once we get to it, my work, I'm not going to say it gets necessarily easier, but it gets different then. Now I'm monitoring versus planning and making sure this piece fits with that piece and so on and so forth down the line. And that what the plan we had laid out is working. Yeah. But I don't want to be the guy that comes up with a plan that fails and not got an input from the people that are going to be doing it, Yeah,
but if you fail, though, you're working. I mean, it's possible you're going to fail.
It's not even so much about failing. Yeah. But because I believe in the whole old coaches thing. When we win, it's us. When we lose, it's me. Yeah. So I'll at the end of the day, whether I get the input or not, the plan's my plan. And if it doesn't work, it's on me. But if it goes really well, now I can say, well, so-and-so and so-and-so came up with this idea. Why don't you explain what you did and how you did it? And I like giving people that leadership opportunity to try things and stretch. Because like you said, teachers are innovators. Humans are innovators. But let's give them an opportunity. Yeah, you need to give it a shot, right? Yeah. A lot of, I feel like that there's a lot of sports analogies, that are valid in this particular situation. Absolutely. Because I said the Super Bowl thing, but I do feel like that this is when you need to rise up
to the occasion and sort this out. And you need to, and I'll bet you that there's so many parents out there who want to help but just don't know what to do.
Absolutely.
And just they want to help. They want to figure this out. And I think that there's a huge disconnect, there, which where it feels, and this might be, again, this, I'm not intending to insult anybody again. This is a worry sometimes when I talk to teachers, but I have an issue with the culture of academia sometimes,
mm-hmm.
where it's just because you have a diploma doesn't mean that you immediately have all the answers. There's
Right.
still a process required and a dumbing down of your ego sometimes, and listening to common speak to really kind of hear, because those are the people that are being served by the academia, they're serving
Right.
these people. And I think, that was clear enough.
Yeah.
It's funny because, I'm in a group called the Advanced Reasoning Forum, and I might have mentioned this in the previous thing, but I got lucky to be in it because of that book I helped put together with critical thinking. It was 3 years of me really talking about critical thinking, things I'm not qualified to talk about. I don't have a degree in logic or philosophy or mathematics or anything. But I was working with this guy, and he liked me, and he liked what I had to say, and he liked my ideas. So he invites me into this group. And so me and 8 philosophers, professors, heads of universities that are talking about philosophy, and I go into this group, and they just start talking about stuff. I don't understand half the stuff they're talking about, but I have opinions.
Yeah.
And I tell them my opinions. And it has happened where when I share an opinion, that people go, it shifts them a little bit, or it makes them kind of think, oh, that's an interesting view. And boy, I feel like that's huge. For me, that's enough. To me, that's like huge, because these guys are huge academic brains. They're so full of knowledge. So sometimes the parents might have the key, a parent that just has a parent, and maybe they're working as a lawyer, or they're working in retail, but they have an idea, and it might help. And I think that they'd be beneficial for the school system to maybe try to. And I know it's done. I know they're, but then you send out the email, hey, we're going to have a talk, and then nobody shows up. None of the parents show up. Right. So that's the other problem. Yep. It's like they might have the idea, but they don't even show up to the game. Right. So that's another problem. So, anyway, I don't even know. I kind of lost it. They're kind of deflated there at the end because of the fact that I know I've gotten emails saying, hey, we're going to talk. And I'm like, oh, I got to go to that. And then, oh, I forgot about it. I didn't go to this thing, and it's, so I'm preaching to the choir here. I need to be better about doing what I
think we all do. I think a lot of times we get wrapped up in our own little worlds.
Yeah.
And, I think back to my own childhood. My dad was the primary breadwinner. My mom did other little odd jobs here and there. She wound up being a substitute, what we know as a FASA, the first aid safety assistant. In a small school district, there were 6 or 7 elementaries, 2 middle schools, and a high school. That was our whole district, and she knew the admin in every one of the buildings and our superintendent. So she could be in touch with everything, yet at the same time she was able to clock out and be home when my brother and I got home from school to help make sure we got our homework done and all those things. I'm a victim of this too. I get tired. You have a 12-hour day. You come home, and I'm probably not checking my kids' homework like I should all the time. At some point, you got to trust that they have the intrinsic motivation to get it done themselves. But I think we're victims of society sometimes.
Right.
That need to keep up with whatever it is we're keeping up with. Mm-hmm. And it distracts us from some of the more important work, like raising our kids and making sure they're taken care of. I think getting back to our conversation about anxiety, the whole first 2-3 weeks of the shutdown in March, I can't tell you how many times I had to charge my phone every day, because I was just checking in on people. I checked on friends. I checked on our teachers and support staff, and just making sure, because we have a lot of young single teachers that are from other parts of the country. I hired a girl from Alaska last year. I hired a girl from Washington State. Their families are still there. So they're by themselves. So I can't imagine if I was by myself, what I would have been doing for the last 6 months. So again, the social emotional piece is for the kids is going to be critical, but then also for the teachers and the people working with the kids, because if their mind's not right, how is that instruction going? You know?
Right.
So we have to, I'm balancing both of those, I guess you could say.
Well, from a leadership perspective, you know, you built a team, and inherently you understand that a good leader understands the needs and the strengths and the weaknesses of each member of his team, right?
Yep.
And you build up a team that supports each other's weaknesses and strengths, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of it.
Absolutely.
And it's in probably the same tactic you have in teaching, right? So I think that still applies, not just in a school, but also in a community. I think that a community needs to because like you said, some people are just tired. And you know, there's certain things you can and can't do, but there are certain days where you can do something. You feel like you should do something.
Absolutely.
And what is keeping people from doing something and getting up and doing something, which is anything? I mean, we don't have a system yet. We haven't figured out a plan yet, as far as I can tell. You mean you guys are working it out on what the plan's going to be?
Yep.
But I think that some part of the plan, there should be a major ask from members of the community who are willing to contribute and help and put in their time. It can't just be you guys. It just I don't think right now it can be. I don't think that, I mean, I don't think it's fair, because to expect to, I mean, what is the goal? We're not going to get these kids back on track at the same speed. And
right.
You don't have all the tools at your disposal. And it's like you're treading water in the middle of the ocean sometimes, and you know, how long am I going to be able to go like this?
Right. Well, you mentioned it earlier. I think that the piece of this whole situation we're in as a country, and really as a global community, is this is temporary.
Yeah.
You know, I think people lose sight of that sometimes, and as creatures, we're a lot of times about the here and now, where if we could just focus on, like, this is temporary, we're going to get through this, we're going to get through this together, and we're going to be better for it on the other side. We're going to be stronger, we're going to be smarter, we're going to be more innovative, we're going to have learned some things about each other and about our system, that if we can focus on, this is not a permanent thing. Like, again, earlier I mentioned I've always been a believer in doing things non-conventionally and pushing the envelope and trying to find new and creative ways to do things.
I just want the community to start thinking about teachers and teaching and kids and students, and whether you
Absolutely.
have kids or not, you should be thinking about the kids.
Well, right, because they're our future, right? So if we don't do well by them now,
we'll be in trouble because they'll be in charge when we're old.
Hopefully they'll figure it out somewhere along the way.
Yeah. And you know, and I have found, because I have the advantage of every once in a while getting a chance to talk to students and teachers and stuff like that. And I have always given them the benefit of the doubt, because it just makes things easier for what I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. But I've always been happy with the results of doing that. You know what I mean? Yeah. You give them the benefit of the doubt, because I just want to say my thing, and then I want to give it to them. And then one incident I do remember, and I think this is the important thing that people don't realize, is sometimes the bad kids, the kids that are the roughest in the room to deal with, the one that gives the teacher the biggest hassle, sometimes is the kid that has the most potential. And that if we don't, because of the stimulation thing, because kids,
Alex, we could have a whole nother conversation here.
Right. Yeah, I know. I'm getting and delving into, but this is a topic that's important to me. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that these kids that need the stimulation, and they aren't getting it in their education, they're going to get it in another way.
Yep.
And those aren't good ways sometimes.
Yep.
And we're writing them off as bad kids, when what we should be doing is figuring out how to stimulate those kids in a positive way. and that's a whole other conversation. And that's
I
we'll
agree.
talk again about it.
Yes, I hope so. I have a theory on that.
Okay.
I've always said that there's no bad kids. There's only kids who have been allowed to be bad.
Right.
Through lack of guidance, lack of supervision, lack of motivation, lack of something. Kids by nature are not bad.
Right.
Kids can see the goodness in everybody's heart, and somewhere along the way, they learn how to not do that.
But what a tragedy, though. I mean,
Right.
a real tragedy that those kids get labeled as bad because they start in early grades being told, you're the bad kid, you're the bad kid. Guess as they grow up, guess what they're thinking? Well, I'm the bad kid. Now they're in high school, and they're into drugs and they're into whatever it is that they're into, and they're the bullies and they're this thing, and it's kind of almost too late.
It is. And it's unfortunate, like you said. I think a lot of times at a young age, at least, well, at all ages, but a lot of behaviors are a manifestation of attention-seeking nature. Kids want attention, and they're going to do whatever they can to get attention, whether it's good or bad. If what I'm doing positively isn't getting me attention, well, now I'm going to start making bad choices. Maybe that'll get me the attention I want and need and deserve. But yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, it's an important one though, and I think I mean, we don't have time to do it, but I think that it is relevant to kind of the big picture on this thing. Hey, man, if you ever want to talk about anything and you want to say some stuff and you want a platform, and just let me know, okay? Because you're doing the heroic work there, and all your people and all those.
I'm just fortunate to have good people working for me. That's all.
Right. Yeah. But I think anyway. So big thank you to you for all the stuff that you're doing for our kids and everything, and all teachers.
Like I said, it's a very rewarding profession.
Right.
So yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So let's just say there's a parent or out there, somebody that is curious. Is there somewhere they can go to get updated information, or maybe even a place they can? Is it the Clark County website? Is that where they would go?
Get information on
on what's going on with education and with the classes and with their districts, and if they can get information about.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff posted on the ccsd.net website. So there's some resources and links there. But every principal in the district right now, I can share with you, is working furiously to make sure that their plans are dialed in for their communities, and we're going to be communicating out to our families and to our teachers and to everybody. Teachers aren't due to report until Wednesday. So new teachers started today. It's always one of my favorite days of the year. This year looks a little different because of the situation our country's in. But all returning teachers start on Wednesday, so a week from today. So in between now and then, there's going to be a lot of people pulling some long hours, making sure things are dialed in and just right for when teachers report back.
Is there
should be coming.
Is there contact information for principals, like for people's in their
should
district?
Be like on the school's website. You should find a way to be able to get in contact with the principals or the office in general.
Well, I would suggest not giving them ideas. I would suggest just people sending them positive reinforcement. And
you can do that there too. Yeah,
that's what I mean. That wasn't me saying, hey, you should go and tell them, because they know what they're doing. It's just,
yeah,
just tell them you got their backs.
Since I have my phone and a link to my email, and so that way, a lot of schools have social media pages set up. You can drop encouraging lines that way. Yeah. We always like to hear that stuff.
Yeah, it's important. It's important.
Yeah.
Positive reinforcement goes a long way, I think. But anyway, my friend, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.